All right, hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since we've done some of these EOC practice questions. Today we're going to go through a whole bunch of them. We're going to go through from US 5 all the way to US 18. Now, if you recall, we already did US 6 and 7. They go with the Gilded Age a little better than they fit into the Progressive Era, just like US 5 fits in a little better with the Progressive Era since it has to do with industry and the Progressive Era really is about industry and like how things get better in the industry. One thing I want to remind you about these EOC practice questions is to take the knowledge that you learned in my class, which I present in a very simple and straightforward way, hopefully. Take that simple knowledge, and what you're going to do is, so I teach you about this level, and then these questions are up here. So you've got to bridge that gap. That's the job of your brain. That's the job of you as the student, is to take that knowledge that I give you and then to apply it to tougher questions and things like this one that have, you got a stimulus is what you call it. They have a stimulus. They have a picture or a reading or a cartoon or something like that. So you take your knowledge that you've learned as far as basic social studies and you put it towards this. This is going to be a whole lot of questions because we got a lot of standards to go through. I would encourage you to watch this before taking the test, which will be the week of, the 28th, so September 28th. So I guess the best way is just to jump right in. Remember to pause if you need to, email me if you need to. You'll be able to find these questions on my webpage. I will post them there for you to review. So best of luck and enjoy. Here we go. So US.05 is our first one, and if you recall, that one has to do with the inventions and things like electricity, the light bulb, all that stuff. So number one, which statement best explains how the application of electricity in the early 1900s affected the development of the U.S. economy? Now, if you recall, the economy at the time was based on industry, and industry has to do with factories. And what do you do at factories? Well, you make stuff. Another fancy word for making stuff is manufacturing, okay? And if you can apply manufacturing, or if you can apply electricity to manufacturing, it's gonna make things a whole lot more efficient, meaning moving quickly. So number one is gonna be C. Number one, our best answer is C. If you read the other ones, they don't even make any sense when applied to electricity. Household appliances are actually become less expensive because electricity is gonna make things a lot quicker, a lot better, a lot easier, okay? So number one is going to be C on that one. US.05, number one is C. All right, here's what we got here. T.A. Edison. If you know Edison, you know that this is a light bulb and it says electric lamp patent. So you know this is a light bulb and it looks like a light bulb, just kind of old school. So number two, how did the invention shown in this patent illustration affect industry? Okay, so we're looking for something that has to do with factories and something that has to do with the light bulb up above. And if you know that light bulbs you turn on at night, and you're looking for something that has to do with factories, it's going to be D. 2's D. Factories could extend working hours. They can work at night now. Ha, thank you. Very good. So number 2 is D on that one. Number 3, which application of a new technology can be attributed to Thomas Edison? Now, if you just looked up at the one above that, we know Edison invented the light bulb, and hopefully you know that anyway, because it's something that's it's a little bit kind of common sense in America. So Edison, light bulb, so B. Kind of the same answer on that one. Light bulbs made it efficient for factory workers to work at night. Okay? Edison, light bulb. Sweet. Hey, guess what? Another Edison question. The state of Tennessee releases these questions for us to give to y'all as practice. So this is another one. So number 4, which statement best describes how Thomas Edison changed American life? So number 4, we're looking for something to do with a light bulb because of Edison. No, so number 4 is B. All right. Let me double check and make sure this thing's recording and looking good. It looks great. I know it's kind of hard to see some of these because it's smaller, but you can download this off of my webpage and everything's gonna be lovely. Okay. And if you got any questions, like I said, let me know. All right. The next one is US.08. Now, this is a very tough question, and I'm not going to sit here and read this to you because you can read it on your own. But what it talks about in this one is that this is about the social gospel and social Darwinism and things like that. Rauschenbusch, this name right here, Rauschenbusch, fancy boy. He talks about how wealthy people should give money to help address problems in society, and the other guy does not say that. So it's actually going to be C. So 1 is C. And I will let you just go and read that one on your own. I don't want to sit here and bore you by reading all this. But it's about the social gospel and social Darwinism. Rauschenbusch, he is pro-social gospel, where he says people need to help each other, specifically rich people need to help each other. Sumner's on the other side, he's more of a social Darwinist, and he said, no, we ain't worried about that. All right, here's a good question. It's kind of tough, but it's good. I think it's a quality question. All right, many progressives, and if you paid attention to my other lectures, progressives has to do with forward-thinking people, people who want to help, people who want to give reforms, that sort of thing. Many progressives oppose, pay attention to your language, oppose social Darwinism because it promoted the idea that blank. So really what this is asking is, what does social Darwinism promote that progressives are not going to like? So what you need to find is, what does social Darwinism promote? So let's take a look at it. Social Darwinism promotes the idea, remember, social Darwinists believe people who were poor were always going to be poor because something was wrong with them. People who are rich are always going to be rich because of something's right with them. So it's going to be F. So many progressives don't like social Darwinism because it believes this: people in lower classes were not capable of economic success. It's a really good question. It's a complex question, but really all you need to know is the definition of social Darwinism in order to answer that question. It's a really good question. Quality, quality, quality. All right, now this worksheet skips around a little bit. It goes from 8 to 10. Well, I believe we started with 5, and then it goes to 8 because 6 and 7 are on the others. Now it goes to 11 on this page. You can just download all of them, and you can find the ones that you need, okay? So let's take a look at this one. Which demographic change? A demographic change has to do with people, okay? So a demographic change, that means people, okay? And what people are doing. What are people doing here? And it says, in the last half of the 19th century, the United States experienced vast industrial growth. Industrial has to do with factories and jobs in cities, okay? So it says a new class of wealthy entrepreneurs and a prosperous middle class. Factory jobs also increased to meet production demands. So, which demographic change in the United States is most associated with industrial growth and factory jobs? You find those places in cities. Another thing is another word for cities, is urban areas, and so it's going to be J, people moving for jobs. You might have looked at this one, but we didn't really talk about life expectancy or anything like that, so this is going to be your best answer. Number 1 is J on US 11. Excuse me. Number 2, which of the following occurred between 1865 and 1900, so post-Civil War to turn of the century, as a result of the rapid industrialization? So this is going to be talking about factories, but be careful on this one. Industrialization of the United States. So industrialization, I told you we automatically look at factories. So let's look at J. Factory owners introduced wage equity policies for women in the workplace. Equity means equal, and wages is pay. So equal pay for women, if you paid attention to my lecture with US 13, that's not right. So J is not going to be your answer. You may have looked at it immediately and be like, oh yeah, that's it. No, that's not it. Now, factory workers were having a tough time because remember, they worked long hours, with low pay, and unsafe conditions. So let's take a look at workers. So social and economic class divisions, no, that's not a good answer. Air pollution, we haven't talked about that at all. So we're going to look at this one. Look, union membership, labor unions increased as workers sought better pay and conditions. So H is going to be your best answer. Don't get tripped up because this is wrong. Don't look at that one. That one's wrong, okay? So 2 is H on US 11, I believe is which one we're on. Yep. All right, rocking and rolling. All right, number 3 goes kind of back to number 2. And if you recall when we went over labor unions, I told you don't really have to know names of specific labor unions. Just what you need to know is that when you see this word labor on these tests, when you see this word labor, know that it has to do with the rights and interests of workers. So these 2 labor unions, so you can just honestly read it like this. The labor unions in the United States developed in response to the, it's going to be A, increased need to protect workers' interests. Okay? So very good. Rocking and rolling. All right, US 10. US 10 has a lot. And remember, it's all about populists and farmers. But these seem difficult, and a couple of them are kind of tricky, but they're not really too bad if you just remember to use your clues and use the knowledge that I gave you already. All right, it says populist demands in the late 1800s. Let's see here. All right, let's look at the question. These demands most reflected the concerns of, all right, we're not sure. There's a clue here that's going to give this away. If you look right here, it says regulation of railroad shipping charges. We've been talking about railroad prices since the beginning of the year, it feels like, and I'm honestly kind of tired of talking about it. So which group of people struggled the most with the railroad? It's going to be A, small farmers in need of affordable credit. Remember, farmers, the railroad is charging them tons and tons of money to ship their crops to the cities on the East Coast, and farmers can't pay it, but the railroads are a monopoly, and they've taken full control of the prices, okay? All right, so number 1 is A on US 10. Number 2. All right, I don't like this question, and I'll tell you why. I don't like it because of this word right here. The state of Tennessee is trying to throw us off. They're saying, what is not a political goal of William Jennings Bryan? Bang. William Jennings Bryan is a populist, okay? And remember, the populists, they want to use silver, okay? So, the opposite side are going to be more pro-gold. So I'm going to put silver, let's see, underneath it. These are the opposites. So opposite. So they don't want silver. Okay, yeah, so the opposite, so the not is pro-gold. See, it's obviously confusing me, man. Jeez. Okay, so William Jennings Bryan, he does want silver. Okay. So it's asking what is not, what is the opposite. So it says, based on the excerpt above and your knowledge, which of the following was not a political goal of William Jennings Bryan? William Jennings Bryan does want to use silver, so the opposite is going to be pro-gold. So we need to look for an answer that is pro-gold. And if you look at number 2, at letter A, Bryan wanted to increase the amount of gold. Bryan wanted to increase the amount of silver. So number 2 is going to be A, because remember, it's a not question. It's very confusing, so you got to be very careful on these. So number 2 is A, okay? Tough questions, tough questions. Don't like not questions. I don't think they're fair, but it's kind of the game we have to play, unfortunately. All right, number 3 and number 4. Let's take a look at number 3. During the Industrial Revolution, how did the economic of hardships influence social reform? That's your key there, social reform. So immigrants, social reform. Now, we've had questions like this that always go with political machines. This is not going to be with political machines, because political machines don't want social reform. They want the immigrants to remain poor so that they can keep hiring them and keep getting their voter support. Okay, that's all they care about. However, there were a group of people such as Jane Addams who helped out these poor immigrants and did things that were reforms, that were good, positive changes. And if you recall, they established settlement houses. So number 3 on this one is going to be C. Settlement houses were established to provide services to the poor. Okay? So that one's pretty easy. Based on populist arguments, how would the economy in the late 1800s have been affected by the adoption of a gold and silver standard? Now, populists, these are people who want lower shipping charges, lower shipping from the railroad. Okay, now, one of the words that you use for shipping charges is also interest rates. So they want lower interest rates, and my handwriting is awful. They want lower interest rates, and they believe that if there's more money in the economy, and they actually had a good point on this, if there's more money in the economy, interest rates are going to go down. So that's going to be B. Interest rates would have decreased. Interest rates would have decreased. Let me rewrite that. Man, I'm dropping everything. Oh, there we go. Old man. All right, so there you go. There's 3 and 4. Interest rates will go down. Okay? So very good. Remember to pause if you need to. Let's go ahead and finish up US 10 here. And we're doing good, y'all. We're getting halfway through these just about. All right, check it out. Look. Ew. Another not question. Gross. Don't like them. But oh well. All right, it says number 5. Based on your content knowledge in the political cartoon above, which of the following was not a reason given by populists for reforming the U.S. currency system? All right, now, remember populists are pro-silver, they're kind of anti-gold. So they're anti-gold, we're looking for something that is pro-gold. And remember, this is very confusing. So you're looking for an answer that's going to be pro-gold, because remember, the populists, they want silver and gold, okay? And your answer that is mainly pro-gold is going to be right here. Populists believe that basing the currency on gold alone, look, would increase the value of the dollar. So 5 is going to be C, okay? And if you look at the other ones, they're all good answers, such as this one. Increase the supply money, that's good. For farm products, that's good. Populists believe control should be placed on railroad companies. They definitely believe that. And look, they wanted silver and gold. So if you know those things, if you know what populists do want, you'll know that it's C, okay? Again, not a fan of the not questions, but it's the game we got to play. All right, good question here. We've seen this cartoon before. It's the farmer, and the farmer's laying down. They're going to get crushed by the railroad, but remember, it's a metaphor. And what it's for, it's a metaphor for the railroad overcharging. They were overcharging farmers. So if you take a look at our answers, B is going to be your best answer. I didn't read you the question. It says, which of the following is a criticism that farmers had of the railroads? B, many Western farmers felt that the railroads were greatly overcharging them to transport their crops. So very good. All right, remember to pause this if you need to. Let me see how we're doing on time on here. Oh, we're doing good, only 16 minutes, that's good. I'm gonna try to keep it under an hour. It's a lot, there's a lot of questions. Pause if you need to. We're gonna go ahead and move on to US.09. So I've done these a little bit out of order. It's just kind of how they downloaded. All right, now let's go ahead and do US.09. Don't read these yet. Remember, you don't want to waste your time if you don't have to. Now, we're going to look at this, and I'm going to tell you on this one there's going to be 2 really good answers. I'm going to tell you what the best answer is, though. All right, Booker T. Washington. So ignore this part for right now, according to this information. Don't worry about that. Washington and Dubois, or Du Bois, agreed that blank, but disagreed about blank. So you got to find the one that fills in the answer the best. And remember what I told you, that both of these guys, they believed in that education is very, very important, okay? They believe different types of education, but they believe in the power of education. But they disagreed about when to end racism and the best way to do it. So if you know that, you know it's B. Now, if you go back, and I'm not going back because I'm not going to bore you to death. If you read it closely, it's this. They're talking about protesting for equality, and they disagree about the types of protests in the document. So for me, B and D work really well. B is not wrong to me. There's 2 good answers on this one, okay? And if this pops up on a test, I will help you out on that one for sure. If you put B or D, I would count that one right. Because there's 2 really, really good answers on that one. So don't stress about that if you see 2 that are great answers, because these are both great answers. So don't stress about that, okay? So 1 on US.09 is B and D. Let's go ahead and keep moving. All right, Du Bois or Dubois, however you want to say it. I'm not super fancy, so I like to say Du Bois. After winning the right, so what does it say? How did W.E.B. Du Bois or Dubois combat prejudice like that described in the excerpt? So it's asking what exactly did Du Bois do? What did he do to help combat prejudice? And one of the things that he did was establish the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And if we look at our answers, the NAACP is an example of an early civil rights group. So 2 is going to be B. Okay? 2 is B. Sweet. Rocking and rolling. We're doing good. All right, number 3 is pretty much the exact same thing. It asks, how did the ideas presented in this address affect the early civil rights movement in the United States? And it goes with Du Bois or Dubois. And if you know that Du Bois or Dubois established the NAACP, and if you look down at letter D, National Association, NAACP, that is that answer right there. So 3 is D, okay? So I know I'm going kind of fast through these, but I mean, a lot of these are really straightforward. Please email me if you're confused on any of them, but we're going to keep rocking and rolling. So a lot of these, all you got to do is just apply the knowledge you already know. Okay? All right, I'm going to get US 12 to 18 pulled up. Let me grab me a sip of water real quick, because I've been talking for a few minutes now. I'll let you take a look. An old question. All right, so number 1. Which of the following best characterizes the Gilded Age? So we got a little bit of a throwback question here. Haha. Gilded Age. Remember gilded? It looked great from the outside because a lot of industrialists were making lots of money. Factory jobs pulled immigrants here. People really were excited to move to America. But remember, the government was very corrupt at the time, making a lot of money to get power and deal with these industrialists. So which of the following best characterizes the Gilded Age? It's going to be B. Industrialists use their connections with corrupt government officials for material gain and political power. And if you look at all these, all of them are wrong, except for B, okay? Gold fields, that was way earlier, prior to the Gilded Age. Deep South, increase in immigration, no, that didn't happen. Family-owned farms, large, nope, didn't talk about that one either. So 1 is B on US 12. Moving right along. Aha, Sherman Antitrust Act. Okay, one of the things that we need to talk about with the Sherman Antitrust Act is that it wasn't that good and it actually hurt workers' rights. So it hurt workers' rights and decreased the power of labor unions. So 2 is going to be G. Now you may look at this and you see H and you'd say, oh, that's very good. It could dissolve business monopolies. But if you remember, Sherman Antitrust Act didn't do very much to work on these monopolies. What it actually did, though, was hurt hurt labor unions. Okay. Okay. Cool. 2 is G. All right. Number 3. During the late 1800s, which action did Congress take to regulate the business practices of companies such as Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel? Your key on here is this one, late 1800s. I'm going to give you a hint. Sherman Antitrust Act is 1887. Now I know what you're thinking. It didn't actually do much for monopolies, but none of these other ones really have much to do with monopolies. So we can use process of elimination. 16th Amendment, that is income tax. So that doesn't have anything to do with monopolies. Gentleman's Agreement is a racist agreement against Japanese people. And then Federal Reserve, that's banks. So Sherman Antitrust Act is our best answer. Even though it didn't actually do much to hurt these monopolies, that's our best answer there, okay? So 3 is B. Okay, moving right along. Here's a good question, I really like this one. So this question goes with this cartoon, so let's take a look at the cartoon first. You got a bunch of rich guys, or just a few rich guys up here sitting. You got, they're holding them up, and they're actually like right next to the water, and these are workers down here. They've got all these complaints and things, and the workers are really struggling while the rich guys are just chilling up here. So it says number 4, which message is being conveyed by this cartoon? So which message is it showing? Well, the laborers, the working class, are holding up the rich people. So it's going to be D. The wealthy were dependent on the labor of the working class. So 4 is D. Wealthy are dependent on the labor of the working class. And we've talked about that. We just haven't looked at a cartoon like this, but we've talked about how, the working class, they've done everything while the wealthy were just kind of chilling. All right, number 5, it goes with this cartoon right here, so let's take a look. Here is the door to the Senate, the U.S. government. Oh, there it is, U.S. Senate here. The monopolist is walking in, and the guy's bowing down, like, yay! And there's a foot that says legislation kicking out the taxpayer, the common man. So which statement best describes the meaning of this political cartoon? And your answer is going to be A. Congress welcomed monopolies at the expense of taxpayers. And honestly, if you just look at that cartoon, it's pretty much labeled to where you could read that and you don't even have to know what any of those words mean. Because you can see, if you understand basic English and body language with the guy bowing down, the door open, the monopolist is walking in, the taxpayer's getting kicked out, that is pretty self-explanatory. So 5 is A. 5 is A. Okay? All right, we went over this one in class, and I think I showed you in the video. So it's got the trusts here, the big businesses, and it didn't copy that great, but it's okay, you can see it. Trust. This is the Senate down here, and it says this is the Senate of monopolists, by monopolists, and for monopolists. So what does this cartoon imply? Imply meaning, what does it mean about U.S. economic policy prior to 1890? So which one of these? Well, if it's all big trusts behind the government, it's going to be D. The federal government passed laws that favored large corporations over small businesses. Okay? So it's going to favor large corporations, meaning trusts. So trusts are the large corporations. Okay? Hopefully this is all making sense. I feel like it's really basic. It's kind of boring, and I do apologize for that, but we got to go through this. This is the game the state of Tennessee wants us to play, and remember, we got to play to win. All right, so check it out. This is from US 13. US 13 was the standard about women and children laborers. So it says 2 million child workers under 16 years today. And this is an old picture. This is an old poster. So it says the issue addressed by this poster is primarily associated with, and I'll tell you, we have not yet talked about this, we have not yet talked about this, and we have not yet talked about that. However, if you pay any remote attention at all, number one is going to be F, the progressive era. Okay, progressive era. They were fighting against child labor. They wanted the kids to be able to not have to go to work, or at least to be able to get paid more and work in better conditions. Okay, but remember that didn't end until 1938. All right, so here's some kids in a coal mine in West Virginia. Not a clear picture, but you get the idea. Based on this photograph and your content knowledge, meaning you know what's going on, what conclusion can be made about the lives of these children? Well, if they are working in a coal mine, that is a very dangerous job. And I don't know what you know about coal mines, but a lot of times, a lot of these guys develop problems with their lungs because they're breathing in coal dust. It's called black lung. So their work was dangerous and was potentially harming their physical health. So 4 is B. And if you read the other ones, they don't make any sense. The work was repetitive and impaired their learning ability. No, that doesn't have anything to do with that. Work was difficult, but paid them well enough to attend school. No, remember, they didn't get paid much at all. Their work was time-consuming, but prepared them for a better occupation. No, they were this is kind of what they were stuck doing, so not so good. So 2 is B on that one. 2 is B. Okay, moving on. US 14. US 14 is going to be, I believe it's the muckrakers and the progressive idealists, so the guys who have the new ideas. And Robert La Follette is another one. He comes up with this idea of a direct primary. Now, this is kind of a tough question because it doesn't actually have much to do with Robert La Follette and the direct primary. But if you look and read it, look, progressives say mostly interested in domestic issues. So if we look, there's only one answer down here that says domestic, and it's actually the right answer, focusing on a domestic agenda while supporting the foreign policy. So there you go. 1 is B. So a lot of times on these questions, if you don't really know, a lot of them will kind of give you away the answers sometimes if they will, if you look up above. So there you have it. All right, moving right along. Aha. Number 2. This is a really great question here. How did the publication of Upton Sinclaires' The Jungle, remember this has to do with the meat industry. Remember that gross thing I read you about the rats running on the piles of meat, and they would put poison bread out for the rats, and then they take the dead rats and the meat and they throw it all into the chopper upper thing together, and then they make you sausage. Gross. So what I told you about this is that there's going to be laws created that regulate the meat industry and things like that. So what it's called is actually the Meat Inspection Act, and we went over that in one of my PowerPoints, the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act. So it's going to be G, Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. Government officials come in and they check out your meat factory and they say, hey, you can't do this, you got to follow these rules, things need to be clean, etc., etc. So there you go. Very good. 2 is G on that one. All right, so look at these. Look at these. So this is The Jungle, How the Other Half Lives. Remember that was the poor people, pictures of poor people. So that was Jacob Riis's book, Pictures of Poor People. Shame of Cities, that was against corrupt politicians. And then we just went over The Jungle, which is about the meat factories. So these things are muckraking things. So what do muckrakers, what is their goal? First of all, they want to show problems. They want to expose problems. This is called expose journalism. They want to expose problems. And they don't want to do it just for fun. They want to make changes. And another word for changes is reform. So 3 is C. 3 is C. Okay? We're doing good. We're moving right along. 3 is C. All right, take a look. Upton Sinclair in The Jungle again. Okay? So The Jungle leads to reforms. What kind of reforms? So let's take a look. Public response to revelations such as the one in this excerpt, aka The Jungle, led to the establishment of regulations that were eventually enforced by the... So The Jungle has to do with meat. Meat is food, so it's going to be F. Food and Drug Administration. 4 is F, Food and Drug Administration. Let's see how we're doing on time. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. We're at about 30 minutes. Let's see if we can get done before 45 minutes, okay? I don't want to take up all your day going over this stuff. All right, during the Progressive Era, one goal of state-level political reformers was to, now what state-level people wanted to do was to get people involved. And our word for people ruling in America, they wanted their average ordinary citizens getting involved. The word for that is to increase democracy. So they were promoting the principle of direct democracy. They want people to get involved. And they did this through like the direct primary, the initiative, referendum, and recall, which is when you have enough signatures, you can change laws, you can create new laws. And with the recall, you can get a public official out, okay? So it all goes back to this, democracy, okay? So when you see progressive era, if you remember this word, you're doing pretty good. Progressive era is all about rights of workers, rights of people, and democracy increasing. So it's very, very good, okay? In response to public concern over issues raised by Upton Sinclaires, the jungle, the meat industry, the government expanded its role in taking responsibility for the safety of consumers. 6 is G on that one. And I basically just gave you an answer on that one. But if you remember, the jungle leads straight to the Pure Food and Drug Act. And what the point of that is, it's not because, they're just trying to create a whole bunch of rules. It's because of this right here. They're trying to deal with safety of consumers, who is us, okay? So they're worried about us as citizens, and so they're trying to look out for this from this stuff, okay? So 6 is G. Let's keep going. Keep it on going. Woo! All right. So check it out. This model was evident in the United States through the works of, so don't really know, but let's take a look at it. So it says, in 1884, Toynbee Hall was founded in a poor neighborhood, there's a hint there, poor neighborhood in London. The primary mission of Toynbee Hall was to offer services to those in need, but it helped university students who had the experience of poverty. Poverty, poor people, develop practical solutions to help people in need. Many reformers in the United States soon adopted this model. So, who helps poor people of this list of people that we have looked at? Well, Jane Addams helped poor people, so it's going to be H. So this is actually what it's talking about, this model that they keep talking about. The model is a settlement house, okay? Settlement house. Can't spell. Woohoo! There we go. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling. This is pretty good. All right, so the excerpt below is from a book written by Ida Tarbell. Remember, Ida Tarbell took down Standard Oil. One of the problems with Standard Oil is that they were charging people way less money than anybody else, so they were undercutting the competition, and the competition could not keep up, and that's how Standard Oil wins and became the super monopoly that they were. And super monopoly sounds like a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing. And I'm not going to make you read the whole thing, but it says, which selection from the excerpt best supports the argument of progressives, argument, blah, blah, blah. And this is the one that goes with that, is that these monopolies were undercutting the competition so much that it says they could not compete, so we cannot compete if you do that, okay? So number 2 is D. And like I said, I don't want to make you have to read that whole thing, so I just gave you the answer on that one, all right? All right. All right, so it says workers stringing beans in a Maryland factory in 1909. So that's what they're doing. All right, number 3. What were photographs such as this one taken by Lewis Hein primarily intended to accomplish? So a lot of the workers in that picture are kids and a lot of them are women. And if you notice in the picture, let's look closely at it again. Let's look back at it. Little kids, and it's very crowded, it's dirty, it's probably hot in there. So which one of those is going to be J? The purpose of this photograph is to focus attention on the need for child labor laws. Okay? Cool. And if you look at the other ones, they don't make any sense. Depict the evils of capitalism and communist propaganda. No. Document labor conditions during economic crisis. Maybe, but I believe that said 1909. We weren't in an economic crisis then. And then segregation, that's nothing to do with segregation, so it's going to be J. Okay? Cool. We're moving right along. Okie dokie. So if we take a look You gotta look at the cartoon. And I know this video is getting long, I apologize, but we're almost done with it. So here is a woman. So we're talking about something that women went after. And if you look right here, look, whiskey, gin, brandy, rum, and I can't read that one, but all of these things are alcohols, okay? So it says, Woman's Holy War, grand charge in the enemy's works. So it says, based on the poster and your content knowledge, which conclusion can be made about U.S. society in the late 19th century? Well, a lot of these women activists that were fighting for women's suffrage also went after alcoholism. And so let's take a look. It says, many activists believe the alcohol industry was controlled by organized crime. And this is late 19th century. We're not there yet. B, many temperance activists believe that the suffragettes threatened to campaign to prohibit alcohol. A lot of these suffragettes, the women, they focused on this. They said, hey, we need to get rid of alcohol. C, many activists believe that the physical and economic well-being of the family was threatened by alcohol consumption. That's a pretty good answer. Let's come back to it. Or D, many activists believe that lobbying politicians was the only way to fight the alcohol industry and gain the attention of the government. I think our best answer on this one is going to be C, okay? Because a lot of women, they felt like that alcohol was going to take down the country. You know, they're fighting a holy war, and if you notice it says that right there, they're fighting a moral holy war against alcohol. So number one on this one is going to be C, okay? Rock and roll. Ain't got enough room to get them both on there. Number two, which of the following was a factor that contributed to the ratification of the 18th Amendment? Now, we just looked at the one which was a woman, and remember, the 18th Amendment is prohibition of alcohol. So no more alcohol, prohibition of alcohol, okay? So if you looked at the one above, the woman was chopping up all the barrels of whiskey, gin, and rum, and so it's going to be B, the growing political influence of women. So women are fighting against this, okay? All right, cool. All right, the creation of initiative, referendum, and recall procedures. So initiative, referendum, recall, these are all things that gave citizens a larger voice. Okay, citizens are participating more in politics, okay? And if citizens are participating more because they are able to participate directly in the democratic process, then our answer is going to be B. Okay? That one's very good. That was pretty easy. If you remember those things and know this, you know it's going to be B. Okay? Keep it on going. We're going quick. All right, which of the following was implemented in 1913 to solve these problems? So all senators were chosen by state legislatures, senators. So if you remember, we went over a certain amendment, the 17th Amendment, that took the right of state legislatures to choose senators. They gave it to the people. They said voters now vote for senators. So it's going to be D. A constitutional amendment was ratified that required to be senators to be elected by the people. Okay? So 4 is D, rocking and rolling. All right. Now, if you look at this one, oops, wrong thing. Here we go. Temperance. Temperance is being alcohol-free. And if you look there, like wherever rum shops are, sing the song of joy till the viper that is in the cup shall no more destroy. They're anti-alcohol. So this is an anti-alcohol thing, okay? So the lyrics that are representative of a movement that culminated in a constitutional amendment during so this is anti-alcohol, this is the 18th Amendment, this comes during the progressive era. We have not yet learned about this. We have not yet learned about this. We already learned about this, but it doesn't happen during this time. It's J, 5 is J, okay? And we're almost done, y'all. I know this has gotten long, I apologize, but hey, it's good practice. It's good for you to see it, it's good for you to know it. And if you were here at school, we'd go over it in the same way. All right, so look, the saloon business, so a bar, an alcohol place, okay? Auto intoxication, disease, crime, insanity, filth. What was the result of the social problems presented in this 1917 political cartoon? Well, what are progressives trying to get rid of? Alcohol. What's another word for making alcohol illegal? Prohibition. So J. Very good. So that one's pretty easy too. Okie dokie. What was the primary result of this legislation? And if you take a look, it says the Organic Act of 1916. Look, The fundamental purpose is to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and to provide enjoyment for the same in such manner forever, future generations. So where can you go now to enjoy nature? You can go to a national park. So 2 is going to be J. 2 is J. Sweet. 2 is J. Okay? All right, recall is the subject on this one, and if you look, it pops up several times. Recall, recall. And look, it talks about the right of the people of there to govern and their leaders to logically have the right and ability to elect, blah, blah, blah. So it's talking about recall. And recall means citizens can bring an elected official out of their office. So citizens are responsible for the behavior of the official, and that another word for that is accountable. So it's going to be C. The reform. So the reform is the recall because he brings it up a bunch of times. So 3 is C. 3 is C on that one. Okay, almost done, y'all. Almost done. All right. So this one goes back to that one we just did a couple minutes ago about the land. So it says which agency belongs to the name on the blank line. This hereby created an agency whose purpose is to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and provide the enjoyment of the same, blah, blah, blah. So you can do all this. Mission statement for the National Park Service. National Park Service. Okay? National Park Service. And if you recall, that's Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. Which groups were most influential in passing the Pure Food and Drug Act? Remember, the Pure Food and Drug Act came after the Jungle. The Jungle was written by a muckraker, and so muckraker is going to be what you're looking for here, so it's H, okay? So women also were heavily involved in the progressive era because you remember the whole thing for women's suffrage and everything. But if you know this and you know this, you'll know the answer, okay? Okay, moving on. Super easy. All right, the picture goes with the question below it, so let's do this one first. A homesteader, let's look at, the process described above led to, So it's talking about homesteading, free land, so which one of these is it going to be? Peaceful resolution of territorial disputes with American Indians? Nope, because the word peaceful, so we know that one. The establishment of agricultural communities, possibly. Federal regulation of agriculture, not really. Look at this one, a decline in immigration to urban areas. Immigration to urban areas has always been moving up. It's always been an upward trend. So the best answer is this one, 2 is B. Because remember, the people that went to live in the Homestead Act, they had to farm the land. They had to free it, or improve it. Free it, not free it. They had to improve it. See, I've been doing too many of these questions. I'm losing my mind. All right, so Roosevelt and John Muir, they are both proponents, not opponents, but proponents of the National Park Service. So what was most likely a topic of discussion between these two guys? And they're at Yellowstone. If you know that, then you know the answer is H. They were talking about designating additional land as national parks. Very good. All right, this is a good one. Consumer protection, control of corporations, and conservation of natural resources. This is all it all goes back to the square deal. And what the square deal was for American citizens, for the people. So which one of these is the government's role in the square deal? So based on the summary, which belief was the foundation of this program? Let's take a look. All right, I know the answer. 4 is B. At times, the government needs to regulate private industry, in other words, like the meat industry and railroads, and then you kind of can ignore this one because it doesn't go much with that. But to protect the common good of you and me, of not having to eat rotten old sausage with chemicals on it. Ew, gross. All right, moving on. Phew, what an odor. And yes, and this is the month of roses. So if you take a look, it says canned beef, guaranteed fresh beef trust, putrefied beef trust, cholera. Cholera is a bad sickness. Ew, not good. So what was most likely the result of the publication of images such as this 1906 political cartoon? Well, it says canned beef, and it's putrefied, it's nasty, it's gross, so it's going to be H. 5 is H. the government passed the Pure Food and Drug Act. Okay, that's very good. Last page, very good. All right, let's take a look at number 1. How did criticism like this affect the United States during the turn of the 20th century? And look, we have become great because of lavish use of our resources, but when the time has come to ask what will happen when our forests are gone, when the soils have been impoverished and waters into the streams, polluting the rivers, blah, blah, blah. So it's asking, how can we protect the land? Number 1 is A, provided support for the National Park Service that protected public lands. That's what it has to do with. Let's move on. 19th Amendment. 19th Amendment is women's suffrage, women's right to vote. So it says, how did the 19th Amendment expand the democratic process? It prohibited discrimination in voting on the basis of gender. So 2 is H, because it allowed women to vote. So very good, excellent. Glad the 19th Amendment was passed. It's very, very good. The goal of this resolution was eventually achieved with the Seneca Falls Convention. You learned that in 8th grade. They were looking for the women's right to vote. So what is it? It says, resolved is the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves sacred right to the elective franchise. And if you know, franchise means right to vote because of disenfranchisement methods from when we learned about Reconstruction. So 3 is C. Last page. Woo! Political activism of the group described in this excerpt contributed to electing. Look, National Women's Party. National Women's Party. Look, agitation meaning protest. Women's suffrage. National Women's Party. So which one of these does it have to do with? The political activism of the group contributed directly to J, the ratification of the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment is the one you need to know as far as you need to know the number and what it means, okay? All right, this cartoon goes with the last question, which is down below. But so let's just take a look at number 5. Let me outline it so that way you can see it well enough. Okay. How did Tennessee play an important role in the legalization of women's suffrage? Remember, Tennessee was the perfect 36, which means it provided the deciding vote to pass the 19th Amendment, and it got that nickname, the perfect 36. So B, 5 is B on that one. 5 is B. And last one, yeehaw! We've done a lot of, two more, sorry. The progressive goal for number 6, the progressive goal to implement women's suffrage was accomplished by a constitutional amendment, okay, because no 19th Amendment. Okay, so these questions are a little bit repetitive. And so this one, now we're finally ready. It goes to this political cartoon, and it says, votes for women, it's got this big hat. It says, we are taxed. Why not? We're represented. We need to be represented. We want our rights. If we're good as men and better, blah, blah, blah. We won't be happy until we get it. And I don't mean blah, blah, blah. I just mean it's got a lot on there. So it says, the issue addressed in this political cartoon was later settled by the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And if you read the middle of her hat that said votes for women, you could look right here and you know the answer. Woo! Let's see what time we got to. Did I make it to 45? Oh, 48, very close. All right, so remember to download these and take a look at them. They will help you on our tests, and they will help you as we get ready for the end of course. I know that was a whole lot. In the future, we won't do that many. I had just gotten a little bit behind and hadn't recorded for the earlier ones. Sorry about that, y'all. But hey, email me if you have any questions. Let me know if you need any help. And hopefully this helps. I'm sorry it's boring, but it's the game we got to play. And remember, we play to win. So, yay! We also play to have fun. So, but you have more fun when you win. But anyways, email me if you need to. Visit my webpage to get this. And I hope everybody has a really, really great day. Bye!